Alright guys, you want to see some fun, cool stuff? Alright, so what you're seeing is the oil in an M30 head in a... This is the oil in an M30 head in a 0.8 G right-hand turn. So in a right-hand turn, this is I think about 10 degrees pitched over, which is about 40 degrees total, which I think equates to about 0.8 Gs. So at this point, the oil, there's no drains on this side of the head at all. So the oil completely pools up, and it's right up against the valve cover here. And then it's just now at this angle starting to hit the drains over here. So actually, if you hit about 1 G, then it's going to go over the edge here. So it's actually going to be up on the valve cover before it even hits the drains on this side. Of course, I can't do that because I'd have to have a valve cover on here to do that. So in a 1 G turn, the head is completely filled with oil. What I ought to do is try to figure out how many quarts of oil this is. I would say it's 2 or 3. So I think this is why it's absolutely critical to not run low on oil in these engines, because in a right-hand turn, the oil completely pools here in the head, and you're taking half of your oil out of your sump, and you're sticking it up here. That's why we start to see oil pressure fluctuation when we start to get a little bit low on oil, because we're starting to cavitate the pump, or we're starting to suck air at that point. So here's another fun fact. So let me show you a valve cover here. So this valve cover sits on here like this. So that right there is the PCV exhaust, and the intake would be actually over here with this baffle. So ideally, with a head like this, you would see that intake's on this side, on the dry side. But what we found in race bar was that right up here at the seam, there was a pretty massive leak right in here because these rivets were loose. This one, actually, I tested it with water, and it's leaking over here and over here, but not over here. So as long as your oil doesn't reach up to here, this one's not going to be leaking. But with race bar, once you get to 1 G in a long turn, long enough to pool all this oil, it would just come right up here on the valve cover, and it would go right into here. It would just fill into the area, and then it would start spraying it out, that breather there. So that's kind of fascinating. So here's the fix that I did. First I did RTV. I put a vacuum on it, and I sucked the RTV into the crevices, and then it was still kind of loose. There's a loose rivet there, and I can't really figure out how to drill these rivets out. So then I just JB welded that whole thing. So at the very least, it'll be good over here, and I think it's going to seal. I'm going to test with water once it dries, but my goal is to at least have it sealed up here, because your whole entire head had to be completely full of oil. And I think you would, by the time the oil got all the way up over here, you would be in more than a 1 G turn for quite a while, and you'd be putting like 3 or 4 quarts up here. So Ron Mexo is going to hate me for saying this, but I think this is why an AccuSump is super helpful, is because it gives you a few more quarts of oil. Once that pump starts to cavitate, if you're low on oil, it'll just give you a little bit extra protection there. So anyway, cool, fun things happening here. Thanks for watching.